Welcome to Our Next Existence by Katie and the Chorus. I'm Katie, former technology strategist turned reluctant spiritual medium, and I channel messages from the Chorus, a group of beings just beyond our sensory perceptions who are loving, expansive, and who greatly enjoy sharing their perspective of us. Join us each week as we share and discuss their ideas about humanity's existence, purpose, and future. Concepts you can draw from to accelerate your path, expand your perceptions, and ultimately step into the flow of the universe and your life. All right, guys, we're just going to go with the Chorus is not here until further notice. Because if I start each episode with "It's just Katie," it might get a little old. So from now on, it is just Katie until I'll try and give you like the high sign at the start of an episode of like, guess who's back? Take it away. So, some of you after last week's episode might now be familiar with the term we invented called material wellness. And in the weeks since the Chorus stepped back, or I stepped away, or I burnt out, or who knows how we want to describe it, I have been embracing material wellness. I guess you could say I'm back in this world, and I'm trying to figure out what I like about it. It's a strange sensation because following my preference, often my preference just wants to be left alone, or at least that's the way I think of it. If I sit down and I think about how well this is all going or what I'm doing, it is a very different answer than the heartfelt presence of not thinking, of just sort of being. And we might consider this to be sort of like a doing nothing. Like, do you just turn into like a blob of ambivalence? You know, neutrality. Does neutrality ever feel like that to you? It's like, oh yeah, to be without judgment. And then it's like, okay, but then do you kind of just blow around like a dried up leaf? You're just neutral about everything. And, you know, the Chorus, that's why they've spent so much time talking to us about our preference and our uniqueness. So I am judging a lot less, but I still want to do stuff. And the sensations are different. And also the things I want to do turn out to be very different. My sense of time, as happened after, last season, is also very expansive. I don't have those nonstop thoughts connecting me back into a period of time. They're just not there. And so in that space, the inspirations and the intuitions and the desires even are very novel. Or they're sometimes even surprising. One day I was sitting down recording and this inspiration came over me that was so strong. And it was like, it's time to take the check and go down to the school. And I thought, what? And then this inspiration came back through very clear. It is time. It's time to go right now. Giddy up. And I thought, okay, sure. And my brain, my thinking apparatus was way more okay than ever, as has happened at each step of this process, with a total quote unquote interruption / surprise / jumping off of a mental projection. I was in the middle of something at my desk, and then it was suddenly time to go. So I grab the check, I get in the car. And because I don't have a sense of time, of a ticking clock, because I have no idea why I'm going there right now, it just felt like the right time, I'm not driving like a crazy person. I'm just driving. I'm just kind of enjoying it. I get down to the school, I pull into the parking lot, and as I pull in, the gal I needed to reach was walking out to her car. And she said, "Oh, great. I was hoping you would catch me. I got to go do this thing and then I'm out for the day." So I handed her the check. I didn't even have to go into the school. I didn't even have to go into the building. I just handed her the check for the thing. She took it. It was the easiest thing ever. She drives off. I drive off. And I think to myself, oh, I guess that's why I needed to go right then. But not only that, but the next several days proceeded to be full of all other sorts of things for me that I couldn't have anticipated, which, when looking back, made that moment in time exactly the most perfect moment in time for me to go and handle that for maximum ease, let's say. And when we first start out with intuition and inspiration and desires we talked about in season 1, sometimes it's sort of like, hello, is this thing even on? I don't feel inspired about anything. I don't feel like I even have an intuition. Other people have intuition. I don't, right? It can just be completely covered over by a lot of thinking and a lot of beliefs. I thought a lot about last week's episode after I recorded it, about this idea of purity, and also its connection to our need to sometimes be a hermit through the course of awakening. And I felt what my belief systems did in some ways as a result of the episode, which is kind of like relimit the information. One of the things it responded with was, oh, I know we shouldn't be a hermit. And is that what we said? And then another thing I heard my belief systems do is, I know we're a bunch of racist, purist bastards. What's wrong with our society? And is that what we said? It's funny, isn't it? How we take a concept like this and we turn it back on ourselves. I almost made a t-shirt the other day that said, humanity first to take the blame for everything. It goes back to those beliefs of guilt and remorse, which defined that fork in the road for our kind in a very ancient time. And I know you probably know people that don't feel any remorse for anything. And maybe if we look at ourselves from a belief system standpoint, they vibrate in a very different set of beliefs. But I also know there's a bunch of the rest of us who do feel badly about all sorts of things all the time. Potentially even baffling amounts of feeling badness and needing to help others and wishing we had done more or should have said that or should have not said that. Sort of follows us around everywhere, those locks of shame. And we're more aware of them now than ever, particularly as we continue to unlock them. So, you do not need to come out from under your rock or emerge from the forest until it is your preference to do so. And no, we are not a race of terrible beings because we have and do sometimes still vibrate with aspects of purity. It has simply been a colorful experience of the expansiveness of creation that we are awakening from. And as we come to terms with, as we remember, as we reconnect to all these aspects of ourselves across great swaths of our history, we get to decide if that's still what we prefer, or perhaps now we prefer something else. So let's go back to that beach for just a minute, you and I. And let's start with a pure beach, a pristine beach, the way we would define it from our five senses standpoint. So, beautiful sand, free of any sort of clutter, beautiful clear water, beautiful clear sky and sun, just the right temperature. There's a soft breeze in the trees. It is as pristine, as pure a beach as we could ever conjure. And I pull out of my pocket this gorgeous gold gilded knob. It's like on a square box. And this knob can rotate. They hand you the knob. And you say, what's this? And I say, well, actually, it's a very advanced device. You can use it to shift frequencies. And I say, okay. I say, so give it a shot. Try it out. You say, just turn it, just either direction, or I say, yeah, sure. See what happens. So the knob is sort of started in the middle a little bit. And so you turn it to the right. And the beach changes. And now it looks very much like a crowded beach in our time place. And there's noise, there's people with boom boxes, there are crowds, it smells like different bottles of sunscreen. There's a plastic wrapper in the sand now next to you. There's birds squawking and some fish jumping in the water and people out on paddle boards. And then this giant party boat goes by. It's so loud. Noise of the engine and, something flies overhead with like a call 1-800 now for whatever it is. And you say, whoa, okay, we changed frequency. I say, yeah, we sure did. And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to turn it back now. I want to go back to the other beach. I say, okay. So you turn the knob back and whoo, all of that disappears. It's just back to pristine sand, pristine water, empty skies, soft breeze. And you say, oh, this is so much better. And I say, it is a beautiful beach. And I say, I don't know, try it the other way. See what happens. You go, okay, sure. So this time you turn the knob a little bit in the other direction. And the scenery all changes. It's a world you don't really recognize, but somehow feels familiar. There are ships in the sky. They have elements of gold in them. There are massive crystalline structures shooting up out of the water. The light is slightly different. There are people on the beach in the ships. They seem orderly, well in control of themselves, perhaps extremely intelligent, as we might say, by our definition. They notice our appearance immediately. They turn and look in our direction. You say, whoa, are we even allowed to be on this beach? What is this place? And I go, well, it's one of the places in our, collection of grapes, one of our time places that our society is actually kind of active across right now. I mean, you could say it was a long time ago. You could also say, we're still kind of in all of these grapes and expanding through them. And then you say, is this like Atlantis? I say, sure, that might be a name that fits based on what we believe about it from our time place. What do you think? And before you can even really start to take a look around, a few of the beings, the people, we would say, start to walk in our direction to address us. And then you go, oh crap! And you turn the knob back. Suddenly fearful of their approach and feeling like we needed to get out of there, you turn the knob back to the middle, back to the pristine empty beach. And you say, oh, that was close. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. They saw us. They knew we were there. They were going to come over and talk to us. Do you think we were allowed to be there? What was that? And I say, well, what do you feel about this beach? And you say, well, it feels relaxing, feels open, pleasant, very calm here. There's not a lot going on. I feel like if I had a hammock, I'd probably fall asleep. I'm so relaxed. And I said, that's well perceived. I said, and what did you feel when we went, back to the busy beach with the plastic wrapper on it? And you sigh and you go, oh, there's just so much there. It's like people and all sorts of different noises and just kind of all over the place. It felt hotter too. Felt like I was going to get burned if I stayed there. And I say, well perceived. And then I say, well, what did you feel about that last beach, that Atlantean beach? The ships, the crystal structures, things like that. And you say, I don't know. It was like, wow, amazing. I mean, I don't even know how any of that stuff works. And I say, well, let's go back. Let's go back so you can feel it a little more. And you say, go back? But they might be waiting for us. They might, I don't know, we might get in trouble or something. I say, yeah, it's possible. I think it'll be fine though. Let's go back. So you say, okay. So you turn the knob a little hesitantly back into that other position and the beach changes. And the ships are still there. And the crystal structures and the people on the beach. They stand very straight. They're very confident. The way they are on the beach seems purposeful. And of course, they turn and notice our arrival. And you say, okay, I don't even know what I'm feeling right now because I think they're going to come over here. I said, yeah, they probably are. And I said, let's talk to them. Let's see what they say. You can always turn the knob and we can always, just go back to wherever we came from. And before you can even answer, they cross the distance between us and one of them addresses us very clearly. And he asks about our intention and our purpose in arriving there. And your eyes kind of get big and wide. And you look at me and I look at you. And I say, okay, what do you feel now? And you look at them and you look at me and you look at them and you say, I have to answer them, don't I? I say, you can if you want, but time's infinite, so we're not really in a hurry. And then they repeat their question. They demand again, what is our purpose and what is our intent in arriving there? And I turn to you and I say, well, this would seem to indicate a few beliefs, doesn't it? I mean, kind of can't you feel the beliefs rippling off them? What do you feel? And just then, one of the beings notices the knob in your hand and looks relatively surprised. And then you noticing their notice of the knob that you're holding, you freak out again and turn the knob back to the middle. And we arrive back on the pristine beach. And I say, well, here we are again. And you say, should I have even had this knob? Wow, did that really just happen? What was that? Is that an advanced civilization in our history? Wow, that was amazing. And I say, yep, that was pretty cool. So what did you feel? And you sit with it for a second. You kind of search around in your field of energy. And you say, I don't know. I felt like they were a force to be reckoned with. They were all intention and purpose. And I don't know, they just knew what they were about. And look at the crystal structures and the ships that they designed. I mean, those looked incredible. And did you see what they were wearing? Even their clothes were like sort of this meticulous kind of beauty to them. They were so impressive. I said, well perceived. And then I said, so how does this beach feel by comparison? And you said, well, I mean, gosh, kind of empty, actually. If I think about it, if I feel about it, I mean, compared to that incredible view and all these things that were there, this beach feels sort of plain. I said, oh, interesting. I said, okay, turn the knob one more time. Let's go back to the other beach from our time place. And you say, ugh, the one with the trash on it. And I go, yeah, let's go back. So you go, fine. So you turn the knob one more time. And there we are again, back on our beach in our time place. Only now someone has showed up even closer to where we were standing before. And there's now this kind of pop-up tent. And they've hung all sorts of flags from it. And then they have this giant cooler and half of it spilled. And two of the people are now arguing with each other about who spilled the cooler. And the ice is all over the sand. And so the sand is now sticking to the ice. And so a couple of the kids who are a little unruly come around and pick up the sandy ice cubes. And one of them throws a sandy ice cube at the other one, which then starts this whole sort of scene of all the kids screaming and throwing sandy ice cubes. And you look at me like, did we really have to come back here? I say, okay, compared to, the magnificent crystal structure beach, what's this one feel like? And you say, it feels like a hot mess. Look at all of this. There's just stuff everywhere, noise everywhere, people everywhere. Half of them are overweight. Nobody's healthy. I don't even know what's going on. The kids are unruly. It's just a mess. And I smile. And I say, well perceived. Each of these beaches represents different expressions of purity that exist across our time places. We have existed in versions of each of them, and we are existing in them in some ways right now. What may feel like an advanced society from one infinitely valid perspective, from another infinitely valid perspective, could be viewed as being a society that was much more focused, more pure, less room for riffraff, chaos, messiness, and expressions of uniqueness. It was a society unified by purpose, a relatively singular purpose, and defined by a set of technology that, though from our viewpoint may be considered expansive, a valid perspective, could also be considered a larger set of specifics than we have today. When we tend to talk about focus and rebuffing other energies, we tend to think of that in a version of singularity, because that singularity is what we are expanding from this perspective, from this particular grape. However, in an infinite universe of creation, that type of specificity could expand over a set of multiple topics. So much so that a catalog of advanced technology, as we would say, could exist. But in some ways, that catalog is a more robust expression of specificity. Today, where we seem to know so little about how some things work, is actually a lighter expression of focus than a society that feels that they know how everything works. And not only do they feel that they know how it all works, but they have very specific, very detailed, very evolved, and historically long-lasting explanations for all of these aspects of their technologies. So much so that over the course of centuries, very little of the underlying premises had changed. And if anything, what had transpired only continued to redouble or reinforce the types of specific understandings that had already been discovered. Is this to say that all kinds of advanced technology are specific in nature? Not quite. It's an infinite universe of infinite things. But it is to say that sometimes, even in our day and age, as we get more and more and more granular in our explanations of things, we are focusing, in a way, on that type of solution and stripping out the possibilities of anything else. Last episode, I made a passing comment towards the end about how abundance could be viewed as an expression of survival. I could understand how some of us might feel like being less in touch with a day-to-day aspect of survival would be a better thing. And to live in a society where there is so much knowledge about energy and about healing and about agriculture would seem to be the ultimate prize. However, we also pointed out that in an experience of day-to-day survival, you may also be expressing or experiencing presence. A type of moment-by-moment presence where you are open to new and different possibilities in each and every second because you don't know how you're going to solve today. You don't know how that next thing is going to work out. It is an expansion into an energetic perception, into an openness, into serendipity, synchronicity, miracles, and much more. the inflection point in this process might look like more and more difficult days as we release the mental churning and also the ways in which we very specifically decided for ourselves, often in advance, how something would go. But also in this inflection point is a greater and greater expansion into direct energetic connection with the frequencies of creation itself, in which a new answer might be manifested in every moment, not just the same types of technologies that our civilization has perhaps thrived under for thousands of years. So I turn and I say to you, what did you feel when we were on that beach with that incredible civilization? What were some of the words that you used? And you said, gosh, I felt like they were all so aligned. They were purposeful. They had an idea of where they were going. They understood so much. They had so many, creations. It just seemed robust and evolved. And I said, that is well perceived. Yes. That civilization that we created and are still active in now is incredible. Has produced extraordinary manifestations. Has ideas and abilities that are not present in our time place. And also, if the chorus's definition of new energy is chaos, if it is sometimes disruptive, if it is sometimes full of surprises, how much tolerance do you feel that society would have for new things? You take a deep breath. Well, I only saw them on the beach for like a few moments and I was mostly freaking out. But no, I'm not sure that they would really welcome new things that easily. It seems like that might take a lot of time and scrutiny, and it seems like sometimes they might not even feel like they even needed to consider new things. That maybe they had it all answered and they had figured out the right way and they believed that was the right and best way. And I say, exactly. And we still do. For those of us who continue to go back and forth between that grape and ours. And that's something that we'll continue to get into as we talk more and more about the topic of distance. But let's for now talk about the empty beach. How much new and different do you think could be created in that version of reality? And you say, well, it's like a blank slate, isn't it? I mean, it's just wide open for all sorts of creation. And I say, that's an infinitely valid perspective, and I agree with you. However, have you ever heard about this idea that sometimes we launch rockets of desire based on contrast? And so, yes, you and I could sit there on the empty beach and dream up all sorts of things. But I don't know, after 10,000 days on that empty beach and you and I have only been able to create maybe some palm tree huts and some other things, would you consider the richness of allowance in that place to be, I don't know, maybe as chaotic and colorful as some other places? You sort of snort, look around the current messy beach that we are on right now. The children are now covered in wet sand and are rolling around in it. They have righted the cooler and they are now laughing as they have opened up all of their drinks. Some people have taken out games and are starting to play, and a new group of people have now shown up behind us, and they have each brought their own drum and are beginning to drum, which has now upset the people on the other side of them who were hoping to have a quiet, relaxing honeymoon day at the beach. And I smile, I look at you, and I say, how much contrast do you think you are experiencing right now on this beach versus the calm, pristine, empty beach? And you roll your eyes at me and you say, I get it. And then I say, but let me ask you a more important question. How much do you feel when walking down a beach like this? And you say, are you kidding? I feel 1,000 things a minute. I feel stressed when I watch these people argue. I feel happy when I see these kids laughing. I feel in awe when I look out at the water and see the horizon. I feel curious when I see this person with their drums because I kind of always wanted a drum. I feel shame when I see someone's body who looks better than mine. I feel pride when I feel beautiful for a second in comparison to somebody else. I feel so many things here. And I say, yeah, we feel a lot, don't we? And some days it's all a bit much. And we just want to be under a rock or in a forest where we can let our circuits adjust a little bit to the amount of everything that we feel as we continue to awaken. You know, there's no right or wrong in any of these beaches. They're different expressions of different energy. And our way of feeling these things is our understanding, our expression to ourselves of what we are perceiving. And it is through a similar sense that we gain clarity on our own intuition and preference. It's okay if you prefer that ancient civilization beach where they were all oriented towards the same mission and they thought they had it all right. There's power in that. There's preeminence in that. There's pride in that. It's okay if sometimes we prefer that. And it's okay if you don't prefer the beach where you feel so much. Maybe some days it feels like a party, and maybe some days it kind of feels like hell. There is no right or wrong in any of these things. It's just understanding that you do feel things that are telling you more information about all the stuff that you are perceiving with your 5 senses. And then I say, look at the dial. You kind of frown at me for a second, sort of puzzled, and you look down at the dial in your hand. It's really quite beautiful. I mean, the box is all sort of inlaid with stuff, and it's got that gold on it. And I say, you noticed anything that's missing? And you say, missing from the knob? I don't know. It's like a really pretty knob. And I say, correct. Just the knob, no labels required. And you look at it again and you say, yeah, that's right. It doesn't have names for these different beaches that it takes me to. And I say, that's right. Because the pilots who used to use those could sense the difference in those frequencies. And so when we were that civilization, never occurred to us to give them names. We all just felt the difference and knew. Kind of like the way you're starting to feel all these differences too, right now. Distance is an emanation of frequency. If we feel that we are very different from one frequency over another, what will result is a span of what we would call physical distance that separates us from those things. The more we understand inherently things in all of these frequencies that we could resonate with or may have at one point resonate with, the more we feel like we can understand aspects of these different places, the more easily we will be able to navigate between frequencies, whether we have a knob or not. Distances will close by way of manifestations that will make sense in our reality, or they will make sense by way of the logic or the beliefs of other realities with which we come into contact. So maybe they have a knob, and that makes sense to us because we've used technology for things too. Or maybe there's just a miraculous, serendipitous storm of natural forces that brings you across a great span of distance, which might also be believable or acceptable or experienceable based on our beliefs in the magic and nature itself. What you might find, though, is that distance is kind of the easy thing. What perhaps calls us to a greater level of expansion is opening up to what it is about these other frequencies that we could relate to. And perhaps the things about yourself that will begin to shed light upon. It is a release from judgment of these other places to which you will travel, because though you will recognize more and more clearly what you prefer, you will also see in some aspect of these other civilizations or versions of ourselves or time places with which you connect, aspects of who you are and have been. Maybe you don't believe anymore that you have all the right answers, but perhaps at one point you can understand how you did. And in that way, when you come across a civilization who still believes that, you can perceive them because the way in which you have closed that distance by way of resonance, with a frequency of understanding, of familiarity, or, as the chorus would say, of allowance. They can be who they are, and you can be who you are. And in that way, simultaneously, you are at once understanding and connecting to them, and there is generated enough space in this universe for you and your beliefs, and for them and theirs. No matter what beach they're on, and no matter what beach you are on. We love you infinitely. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found these messages to be helpful. May they accelerate you on your path wherever you'd like it to go. For more information on the books which correspond to these podcast seasons, our podcast, live events, or how to get in touch with us, visit katieandthechorus.com. Thanks again. See you next time.